Hello and welcome to the Healthy Middle Ground podcast with me, Jen Curtis. This week, I want to answer the question, should you build muscle or burn fat? Because I think this is a question that a lot of you and a lot of women ask themselves. And there's a lot of noise out there on the internet. In particular, it's very trendy right now to talk about going through sort of diet phases, say 3 months in a calorie deficit, and then 3 months at maintenance or even in a surplus to build muscle, and then alternating between the two. And I think that this idea is very, very trendy, but it is also kind of missing the woods through the trees. There's some context that's missing here for most women that I want to kind of clarify today. And while there is a grain of truth to it, or there's a lot of truth to it, at the same time, it's also kind of not really relevant for like 99% of you, and it's overcomplicating things and it's confusing the fuck out of you. So what I want to do in this podcast is break it down into 3 categories. And these 3 categories of women are determined, you're going to be in one of these 3 categories, right? This is going to help you decide, okay, should I, kind of a flow diagram of should I prioritize muscle building or fat loss first or do both or whatever. And these 3 categories are determined by 2 things. Number 1, your body fat percentage, or how much fat you have to lose, how much excess body fat you have to lose, whether, it's just 5 kilos or more like 10, 15 kilos, or, if you're very overweight or obese. So that's the first factor. And the second factor is how much muscle you have and how consistently you are training with moderate to heavy weights. So I'm going to give you the short version first, and then I'm going to go into detail on and explain exactly why each one is what it is. So the first category is you've got lots of body fat to lose. You're overweight or obese. Your BMI is very high. And you're like, say, as a woman, you're over 30 or 33% body fat. So you've got a lot of body fat to lose to get to a healthy body composition. And you also have no muscle. I mean, obviously everyone has muscle, right? But like you're not currently lifting weights. You haven't lifted weights for at least a year, or maybe you've never lifted weights your entire life. Maybe you do some cardio, you've done some cardio in the past, but you've never done anything that resembles consistent weightlifting. Have a high body fat percentage and you're going to be under muscle. So in this scenario, you might be saying, should I build muscle first? Should I lose weight? No, you need to do both at the same time, and it will be beneficial to you to do both at the same time. You can absolutely build muscle and be in a calorie deficit at the same time. The second category is, so the first category is you've got lots of fat to lose, you've got lots of muscle to build. Second category is you've got a little bit of fat to lose, so like 5-10 kilos max, and you're very under-muscled. You don't have much muscle. You don't train with weights. And I'm not talking about Peloton, strength workouts, or using 4 or 5 kilo dumbbells. I'm not talking about body pump. I'm talking about actually lifting heavy-ish weights. Again, maybe you do cardio, but you've never done any sort of strength training. And this category is often called skinny fat. Not a very complimentary term, but it describes someone who they are a healthy BMI, but their body fat percentage is still very high. And so for women, that's like over 30% body fat. And the reason why they are a healthy weight is because they have so little muscle and often bone density as well, that it brings them into a healthy weight range, even though their body fat percentage is not very high. So if this is you want to, first of all, short answer, you want to focus on building muscle first. And it might be possible to lose some weight slowly, but you probably want to just focus on building muscle for a little while. I'll go into more detail afterwards. I just want to go through the 3 categories. The third category, and most of you are probably in this category, is that you've got a little bit of fat to lose, like 5 to 10 kilos. You'd just like to tighten up. You'd like to be a bit leaner. And you also have a good amount of muscle. And I'm talking about doing heavy-ish weights 3 to 4 times a week. Maybe it's something a bit random, like group classes, like CrossFit, but you are lifting relatively heavy weights, sometimes very heavy weights, and you're doing it quite consistently, quite regularly. You've been working out for at least a year or like at least 6 months. If this is you, this is where things start to get a little bit more complicated. But again, in practice, it gets kind of overcomplicated online. This is where you probably can't sail in two boats and you need to prioritize one over the other, either prioritizing losing fat or prioritizing building muscle. But in practice, if you are already lifting weights 3 to 4 times a week, you are already building or maintaining muscle. So the only way for you to build more muscle and really focus on building muscle rather than losing fat is, one, to train more than you're currently doing. So this is where the term volume comes in. Like, volume is weight times reps times sets times exercises, right? So you would have to do more weekly volume than you are currently doing, which would probably result in like more time. So if you're already doing 4 CrossFit classes a week, are you going to do a 5th CrossFit class? Do you have time for that? And the only other way to really prioritize strength training or squeeze more juice out of the hours that you're currently spending lifting weights is to optimize things. And optimizing things usually means following a very structured program where you have, say, 3, 4 workouts a week, 5 workouts a week. You know, you have exactly what exercises to do in each workout, and you do the exact same exercises, the exact same workouts for, like, I'm talking minimum of 12 weeks, okay? And you show up and you do heavy weights and you progressively overload. And in practice, if you are already somebody who's doing 3, 4 workouts a week, maybe 5 workouts a week, you either don't have more time to add more in or more energy, or maybe you just don't have the recovery capacity for it. You can't actually recover from it. Like, there's no point adding an extra hour of workout in if you're not going to recover, right? What's that going to do? It just means you're going to lift less weight in all of your workouts. Or you are not actually going to be willing to do the things that you need to do to optimize your program in the way that is necessary to squeeze a little more juice out of what you're currently doing. Like, you either don't have the attention span for it or you don't have the motivation for it. But most women in this situation who are asking this question aren't actually following a structured program in the first place. And I know, from my profession, that most women fight pretty hard against actually following a structured program. It's something that they just don't want to do. So while in theory you can either lose fat or build muscle or like focus on one at a time, in practice you should probably just focus on losing body fat, because you are not going to be able or willing to do what it takes to build even more muscle than you're currently building. Let's not forget, you're already lifting weights, you're already working out like quite a lot. So you don't have any wiggle room to add more to that. So that's it. That's the short version of this episode. If you've got lots of fat to lose, lots of muscle to build, you can do both at the same time. Category number 2, if you're skinny fat, you've got a little bit of fat to lose, no muscle, you should focus on building muscle first. And category number 3, if you've got a little fat to lose and a good amount of muscle and you're training pretty hard and you're training pretty intensely, you can in theory do both at the same time. You will at some point need to prioritize one over the other, but you probably in practice only really have the option of trying to lose body fat because you're not really going to do what you need to do. You're not willing to do it to get more out of what you're currently doing. So now I want to dive a little bit more deeply into each of those. But before I do, I want to describe 2 concepts that you need to understand about exercise science, about losing fat, about building muscle. Like, this is kind of the sciencey bit, and I'm going to try and keep it in really, really, really simple terms. But these are concepts that you need to understand in order to know what you're even doing in the first place. And I find that most people just don't know enough. They think they know a lot, that we're inundated with information about nutrition, about fat loss. So most people think they know a lot of stuff, but they don't actually know anything. They just have a lot of misinformation. So for example, they think that carbs lead to fat gain, or that, you can burn muscle in a workout. And these things are completely wrong. This is total misinformation. So a big part of my work and what I do with my clients on my online coaching program is re-education, actually teaching them what is true about exercise, about training, about building weight, about building muscle, about losing fat. And there's an entire section on my online Jen Curtis Academy that is for my online coaching clients that takes them through all of this. There's a module on the fundamentals of fat loss, and there's a module on training and how training actually works. So the two different concepts that you need to understand is, number one, you need to understand that the different mechanisms that are involved in fat loss and muscle building, okay? Because they are two entirely different mechanisms. How do you create fat loss? You create fat loss through a calorie deficit. This is also really trendy. Lots of people talking about it online, but it's true. You burn a certain number of calories a day. Let's say you burn 2,000 calories a day, including all your exercise, including all of your activity. You need to be eating fewer calories than the number of calories that you are expending in order to lose body fat. The way that it basically works is that if you are creating a deficit, if you're, let's say, in a 300 calorie deficit, you're eating 1,700 calories a day, but you're expending 2,000 calories a day, your body has to make up the difference. So what it does is it converts your fat stores, which is just stored energy, into glucose, basically, so that you have energy. That's it. That's all that happens. And then if you do that consistently enough for a long enough period of time, your body will take more and more and more of your fat stores and convert it into energy for your body to use. So that's how fat loss basically works. Muscle building is a completely different mechanism. The main mechanism by which muscle building occurs is basically about mechanical tension. And what that means is that you are loading the muscles with sufficient weight, sufficient load for your body to say, we need more muscle in this part of the body because there is this stimulus. Okay, the person is lifting this weight. Let's say you're doing a squat, for example, and you never do squats. You've never done them before in your life. And then you start doing squats just with your body weight and you weigh 80 kilos. You do sets of 10, you do 3 sets. Your body says, okay, so the body needs to have more muscle here to be able to cope with this. It's anticipating future stimulus. So after a training session, your body then repairs the area and there is some muscle protein synthesis that occurs. But then if you keep doing body weight squats, your body will just maintain that same level of muscle mass, right? You'll build some muscle mass, but then you'll plateau. You need to keep adding more weight and more what's called volume. So volume is weight times reps times set. So if I'm doing just my body weight squats with no weight, 10 reps, 3 sets, okay, that's overall, let's say a volume of 30. If I then build up to 10 kilos, so now I'm doing 10 times 10 reps times 3 sets, that's what's 10 times 10, 100 times 3 sets, that's 300. It's an arbitrary unit. It's just a unit to measure how much overall volume is going. And then obviously if you lift 100 kilos for 10 reps for 3 sets, that is then 3,000, right? So you have to increase the volume over time. And this is, which is increasing the stimulus via mechanical tension. Okay, so it's basically about lifting more weights. You can basically build muscle by increasing the reps, but if you're lifting 10 kilos and you're doing 10 reps and then you go up to 15 reps, you will build a little bit more muscle, but there's a limit to how many reps you can do and then you'll plateau. So then you need to add more weight. There are other elements of it, but basically mechanical tension is the driver of muscle protein synthesis. It's the thing that makes your muscles say, we need to build more muscle here because we need to be able to cope with this load in the future. And then your whole recovery process from your workout, when you get sore the next day, when you can't lift as much weight because you're sore, that's your body recovering and building the damaged tissue back up and even bigger if you're training right, so that you have more muscle there to cope with the stimulus in the future. There are also other important factors that go into muscle building. So for example, enough protein, right? You all know that. You've got to be eating enough protein to have the raw materials to build the muscle in the first place, because muscle is protein, right? It's made up of protein. So you eat protein, your body breaks it down into amino acids and it builds it back up in the muscle tissue. But it only does that if you are giving the muscles sufficient stimulus in the first place. So if you eat loads and loads of protein, have a really high protein diet, but you don't lift weights, guess what? You won't build or maintain muscle. You also need sufficient calories. So that makes it more difficult to build muscle in a calorie deficit. but it doesn't make it impossible. It just makes it harder. You also need the right nutrients other than protein. You also need rest and recovery. You need sleep. You need, if you're just training back-to-back sessions and just never having any rest, you're not going to build any muscle. So there are lots of factors that are necessary, lots of criteria, lots of boxes that need to be ticked to build muscle. But it's really important to understand that the main driver is progressive overload, which basically means lifting progressively heavier weights, but it also means increasing amounts of volume in order to build more muscle. The second concept that you need to understand in order to understand whether you need to burn fat or build muscle is something called the law of diminishing returns. This is a universal law. It doesn't just apply to exercise science, but it's very important in exercise science. And what it means is every unit of exercise is beneficial, right? Like you exercise for an hour so that you get certain benefits, right? You build muscle, you improve your cardiovascular system, like it's good for mood, for hormones, blah, 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 right? The reason why you're doing it is to achieve those benefits. But what most people don't understand is you get the greatest ROI, so the greatest return of investment in the first unit, let's say the first hour of exercise that you do each week. So let's say you exercise just 1 hour a week. You get a certain amount of benefits from that, a certain amount of return on investment from that. Then let's say you start exercising for a second hour each week. So that second hour, you still get more benefits. It's obviously more beneficial to exercise for 2 hours a week than it is to exercise for 1 hour a week. But the ROI, the return on investment that you get for that second hour specifically is less than what you got for the first hour. Let's say 75% of the return on investment for the first hour. So first hour, you get 100% ROI. Second hour, you get 75% ROI. Still totally worth it, but not as much as the first hour. Still more benefits than working out for 1 hour, but not significantly so. I'm making up these numbers, by the way. I'm completely pulling them out of my ass. It's just to illustrate the point. The third hour that you exercise, now you continue to get more benefits from that third hour. You derive more benefits from it than doing 2 hours, but your ROI is even smaller. So now your ROI is 50% of the first hour. So you're only getting half as many benefits from that third hour that you got from the first hour, but still overall now with 3 hours of exercise a week, you're still, healthier. You're getting more benefits than that first hour, than just doing 1 hour. But the ROI on the hour itself is lower. Then you add a fourth hour of exercise and now your ROI is down to 25%. And now you start being like, well, is it really worth it? Because that extra hour is that extra unit of effort and energy and time. Is it really worth the ROI? And this is the law of diminishing returns. The more you put into a system, the less the returns are on the investment that you're putting in. And this applies to lots of other things like business and stuff like that, but it applies very much to exercise. So I'm not saying don't work out for 4 hours a week. It's great that you're working out 4 hours a week, and if you enjoy it, then fantastic. But it's just important to understand that fourth hour doesn't give you as much benefit as the first hour. And if you keep going, adding a fifth hour, a sixth hour, a seventh hour, it should make logical sense to you that increasing curve that's going up is now starting to be less and less steep. So you're just not getting as many returns for each additional hour. And eventually it plateaus. And if you keep going, eventually you go into negative returns. So if you're doing 8, 9, 10 hours of exercise a week, you might be doing damage, and it might be actually detrimental rather than beneficial to your health, right? And that should make logical sense, right? You can't just keep going on and on and on doing 1,000 hours. There isn't 1,000 hours in a week. So like 168 hours in a week. So obviously there's a cutoff point where it's no longer beneficial and it starts being detrimental to you. Most people have this backwards. Most people think some combination of the more the better. So the benefits of exercise just keep on going, and the more you exercise, the better for you. This is not true, right? There is it's better for you up to a certain point, and then it starts being detrimental. And this is true of everything, right? Broccoli is good for you, but if you eat enough of it, you're going to have some serious GI distress. Water is good for you, but if you drink enough of it, you will literally die, okay? Everything is a poison. It's just a question of dose. And exercise is exactly the same. But most people in their head somewhere, they logically understand this, but they think the more the better. So I have clients who are working out 3-4 hours a week, and they're trying to cram more exercise in. And I'm trying to explain to them, you won't get the benefits that you are looking for by just adding more exercise in. It's actually going to start being detrimental, especially if you can't recover from it. If you're a mum, if you have a full-time job, if you're stressed, if you're not sleeping enough, there's only so much recovery capacity you have. And the amount of exercise that you can tolerate depends a lot on your recovery capacity. So most people think the more the better, but they also think that there is a certain threshold of amount of exercise per week, and below which it's pointless. It doesn't do anything. So a lot of people think something like, I don't know, like 4 hours a week. You have to do at least 4 hours a week, otherwise it doesn't do anything. Or they say things like, oh, you have to exercise for at least 20 minutes in a row, otherwise it doesn't do anything. This is not true. 5 minutes of exercise does precisely 5 minutes more than 0 minutes of exercise. 1 minute of exercise does 1 minute more than 0 minutes of exercise. Yeah, it's not a lot, but it still has benefits over 0. There isn't this like kind of magical threshold that you have to reach. You get benefits from the moment you start exercising, and the first units of exercise that you invest in give you the biggest return on investment in terms of health and muscle building. If we go back to our 3 categories and dive in a little bit deeper, right? Category number 1, you've got lots of fat to lose and you don't strength train, you're unfit, you don't do exercise. You have got the most to gain from starting doing some exercise, and you can absolutely do both. So if you have very little muscle mass, you have the most potential for building muscle mass, right? Because everyone has a natural genetic ceiling to how much muscle mass you can build, right? We don't just keep on building muscle until we weigh 1,000 kilos. There's a certain natural limit beyond which that's when people take, steroids and things like that. But even then there's a limit. So if you are somebody who is under muscled, who doesn't lift weights, you have the most to gain from strength training. The moment you start lifting weights, you'll start building muscle, and you can pretty much do anything and you'll build muscle. But any sort of like unstructured strength training, doing it imperfectly, a bit of inconsistency, a bit of like randomness, you will get stronger, you will build muscle. Any of you who have been doing CrossFit, for example, for a year, you will know, like, you got way stronger in that first year of CrossFit. You went from not knowing how to deadlift to deadlifting 70, 80 kilos or even more, right? You've seen that strength build, and you've probably seen the changes in your body. You've seen the muscle building as well. The mistake most people make is when they get to a certain point, so that's called beginner's gains. In the beginning, you build muscle very, very quickly. The mistake most people make is they expect those beginner's gains to continue infinitely, and they don't. There's a cutoff point, and your body can't keep on just making more and more and more muscle. It certainly can't do it at the rate that it could do when you were under muscled, when you were weak, when you didn't have much muscle mass. Then you have the most potential for muscle gain. And when you have quite a bit of muscle, your potential for muscle gain diminishes, right? That's the law of diminishing return. So if you've got a lot of fat to lose and a lot of muscle to gain, you want to do both at the same time. You want to get yourself in a calorie deficit, and say like a 20% calorie deficit is great. So figure out your maintenance calories and then figure out a 20% calorie deficit from there. If you don't know how to do that, I have an episode exactly on this, and I'll link it below. I also have a 10-day course on fat loss that teaches you the basics of fat loss. I'll link that below as well. And you can also build muscle simultaneously. So while you're in that deficit, your body's using fat to make up the deficit for the calories that you're not eating and to make up the deficit to your overall calorie expenditure. And you can also build muscle by lifting weights, like say once or twice a week. If you can do 3 times a week, great, but you don't need to do more than that. If you're not doing anything, you'll get benefits from 20-minute sessions in the beginning. So you can start small, but you can do both at the same time. You've got plenty of potential for fat loss, and you've got plenty of potential for muscle building. A lot of people get confused by trainers and other people who will say, no, do cardio to burn the fat first, or you need to be in a surplus to build muscle. That is not true. And so sometimes very overweight people eat in a surplus to build muscle and they just end up gaining more body fat. Yes, they gain more muscle mass as well, but it's a shame because they could totally build muscle in a deficit. They would definitely build muscle at maintenance. So if they stayed the same weight and focused on lifting heavier weights, they would build muscle, and so they would be losing fat, but they can also be in a deficit at the same time. And just focus on making changes to make your diet better, get enough protein, basing meals around protein. Anyway, this isn't an episode on how to lose the weight, but just suffice to say that you can easily do both at the same time. And you should do both at the same time. It's very good for you to do both at the same time. And if you don't lift some weights while you're losing body fat, about a third of it will be muscle mass. So if you lose 30 kilos and you don't lift weights, about 10 kilos will be muscle mass or lean tissue, but it doesn't matter. Whereas if you lift weights and lose 30 kilos, you'll lose all of the 30 kilos of fat, maybe even more, if you manage to build muscle rather than just maintain it. Okay, so category number 2, you're skinny fat, you've got a little bit of fat to lose, and you've got practically no muscle, you don't lift weights, maybe you do cardio, but you are under muscled. For this category, you should probably build muscle first. And the reason why, I've worked with so many women who fit this category and they really, really, really want to lose body fat, but it's really hard for them to lose body fat because they don't have much muscle, which, building more muscle, it does increase your metabolism. It's a little bit overrated how much it increases your metabolism. It's not that significant, just having the muscle. But it does increase your metabolism a little bit. But also increasing your muscle mass will increase your energy. You'll get injured less often. You'll have more energy during the day. You'll have better blood sugar regulation. It's better for hormonal health. And so often women who are skinny fat, physiologically, it's very, very difficult for them to lose fat because they're tired all the time, because they all keep hurting their back, because the more muscle you have, the more energy you have, because everything is easier for you. So if you're very, very weak, life is very, very heavy. And so you get tired a lot. Whereas if you build strength in the gym, life will be easier. Every step you take will be easier. Every time you pick up a washing basket or the shopping or your kids, it's easier. So you get less tired because relatively you are more strong. But I've seen it in practice time and time again. People in this category who are like sarcopenic, so they have high levels of body fat and low levels of muscle, which makes their BMI and their weight in a healthy range, but their body fat percentage is too high. It's very, very, very hard to lose fat here because your metabolism is very low. You're just not burning that many calories. You have poor blood sugar regulation because muscle helps to regulate blood sugar. Hormones are normally, hormones is a complicated topic, but having more muscle mass helps to regulate hormones and improve our hormonal health. Just physiologically, you are not in a good place to be able to burn fat. And so someone in this category will benefit immensely from spending, I'm talking like at least 3 months, but I would spend the next year of your life really trying to increase your physical activity and increase your strength and increase your muscle mass. You don't have to start with very much. You might start with like 2 10-minute sessions a week. I'd recommend trying to work out twice a week if you can. Like 2 short sessions is better than 1 20-minute session. 2 20-minute sessions is better than 1 40-minute session, but it's still good to be doing 1 40-minute session. Trying to just try and increase from what you're currently doing. Try to lift progressively heavier weights. Start where you're at and increase from there. And again, I'll link in the description below my strength training email course that will teach you all of the basics of lifting weights and how to lift weights safely but also effectively. So start with that and really commit like a year of your life to trying to build muscle. But also it's worth really addressing your diet, because I find that most women who are sort of skinny fat Some of them are I'm eating really, really healthily, I just can't lose weight. But a lot of them, their diet is all over the place. They're snacking, grazing all day. They're not eating proper meals. They're just eating crap. They're not eating enough protein. They're eating too many carbs, too much fat. So that's the stuff you want to focus on fixing first, along with lifting heavy-ish weights. In the beginning, it won't be heavy, right? But like getting stronger over time. And then in a year's time, if you're the same weight, but you've built significant muscle, you will have lost body fat. Let's say you built 3 kilos of muscle mass. You will have lost 3 kilos of fat if you're the same weight. And now metabolically, you're in a much better position to lose body fat. Okay, so now let's talk about the third category. If you are somebody who trains really hard, let's say you go to CrossFit or group lifting sessions, you're lifting heavy-ish weights. I'm talking like you can squat at least half your body weight. You can deadlift at least half, if not 2/3 of your body weight. You can bench press at least 1/3 of your body weight, right? So for a 60-kilo woman, that would mean bench pressing 20 kilos. It's not particularly heavy, but like you're at least doing that kind of thing. You're training 3 or 4 times a week and you've got less than 10 kilos to lose, or maybe even less than 5 kilos to lose. You just want to kind of get leaner, get a bit more toned. So this is normally the group that is like, should I try to lose fat or build muscle? And my answer is always like, it's probably not what you would expect, because like you are already doing a lot to build muscle, right? You're already lifting relatively heavy and you're training quite frequently, right? So if you want to build even more muscle, right? You're already building muscle, right? Or at least maintaining it, right? What you're currently doing is that, you're doing it. You're doing like 80-90% of it. What you would need to do to get more out of that, to build more muscle, is either 1, train more, increase your overall weekly volume, or 2, train better. So you would need to optimize things. You would need to train with like a structured bodybuilding program 4 or 5 times a week, like do the exact same workouts for like 3 months straight. And most of you just either you are not able to do that, you're not able to follow a program or to train more, you can't recover from more training because maybe you're not sleeping enough and you're drinking too much alcohol and your diet's not really on point, and you're really, really stressed, or you're not able to train an extra hour each week, you're already at your max, or you're not willing to do the things that you would need to do to optimize your program, right? And you've got to remember, this is the law of diminishing returns. You're 80% there already. If you want the extra 20% of gains, if you want to build a little bit more muscle, than you already currently are, you would have to do things better or more than you are currently doing. And that is just a moot point for most of you. You're either not willing or able to do it, or you don't have the motivation to do it. So that only leaves you with one option, like lose fat, right? Continue doing what you're doing, continue enjoying your workouts. You're doing what needs to be done. And then focus on your diet, tightening that up to get in a calorie deficit while you're also working out, and boom. But that in practice, you only really have one option, because the other option isn't even on the table. It's not something that you're able to do. But also, I think that this idea of like building muscle is kind of overrated at a certain point. Building muscle is so important and everyone needs to do it. Especially women, you've got to do it, right? But it gets to a certain point where like women who are already training 3-4 times a week, they're already lifting heavy weights. Like some of you are doing pull-ups and you're deadlifting more than your body weight and you're squatting close to your body weight and you're going, Jen, should I focus on building muscle or losing body fat? And you don't really need to choose, because you keep doing what you're currently doing and then you're just like maintaining your weight at the moment. So it's just then focusing on your diet so that you are in a small deficit and you are able to lose body fat. But this idea of like, oh, I've got to be building more muscle than I currently am. Once you're already doing that, like you don't need to do more. There's no point. You're already doing the things relevant for it. There was a time in my like journey, whatever, where I was always trying, like in my head, I was like mentally always trying to build muscle. I wasn't like, progressively overloading each week. I was doing kind of whatever I wanted, but I was always chasing in my mind muscle growth. And in reality, I was just like maintaining the muscle mass that I had, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. But it was fine because I was already pretty muscular. And now I understand. I've got 3 kids. I train like 2-3 times a week. I'm fairly strong. I can deadlift a good amount of weight. I can do like 5 or more pull-ups. Like, I'm not like massively like super duper superhuman strong, but I am pretty strong. I don't want to do a 4th session a week. I don't want to work out every single day. I don't want to optimize everything. I want to go and enjoy my workouts. I want to go to some random CrossFit workouts and just enjoy myself rather than doing everything super duper structured. You're doing what needs to be done to build muscle. You don't need to optimize it. You don't need to do it better. It's kind of like if you have a job, like you need to work, you need to earn money, right? But if you work a 40-hour week, you don't need to keep working more and more and more, right? You're doing enough. You're working, you're earning money. Like, that's enough. You've got other shit to do as well. And all these people online that talk about like spending 3 months in a deficit and then spending 3 months in like a surplus building muscle, forget about it. If you want to lose a few kilos, whether it's 10 kilos or just a couple of kilos, just fucking do it and stop thinking about it. Should I build muscle first and should I do that? No, you've already done the bit where you built muscle. Just lose the fat because you will have the physique that you want when you lose some of the fat. And you probably just like, once you are quite a muscled individual, you just don't need more and more and more and more muscle. Some women obviously really enjoy the pursuit of building muscle, really enjoy getting into bodybuilding or CrossFit and getting really, really muscular. And if that is you, like, you know, I go to a CrossFit box and some of the women who compete, they are so strong and they're so muscular and they've got these massive thighs and this massive bum and these huge back muscles. And like, if you want to do that, if you want to be like that, whether it's because you want to perform in CrossFit that way or because you want to look like that, that is a completely legitimate goal, right? You 100% can do that if you want to. So, and you definitely need to focus on building strength, building muscle. You need to get your diet cleaned up. You need to at least be at maintenance calories, if not in a bit of a surplus, but probably not too much of a surplus. Otherwise, you'll just gain a whole load of body fat. And you do want to be improving over time. Yes, if you are there, you absolutely want to do that. And you absolutely can do that if that's your legitimate goal. But if you don't really care about that, if you just like, I'm cool, I'm enjoying doing my CrossFit, like most women aren't like this though. They're like, oh, I'm not strong enough. Oh, I need to get stronger. And they're already squatting 70 kilos. And it's like, why? What are you chasing? What are you trying to prove? Like, you're already doing it. So if that's you, if you're like doing it and you're enjoying it and yeah, you want to improve, but it doesn't matter. You've already like benefited from the beginner's gains, but now you just want to get a little bit leaner, then just focus on your damn diet. Just get into a calorie deficit and you will look and feel the way that you want to look and feel. Yes, there is a certain point where you can't sail in 2 boats and you kind of need to pick one. But for the vast majority of you, practically, you just need to focus on the fat loss, unless, you know, the performance and the pursuit of like getting really, really muscular is your goal, which is also fine. And then you should just focus on the muscle building more. But that doesn't mean that you don't focus on your diet at all. So I hope that kind of cleared it up and demystified what you should be doing, what your goals should be. If you got clarity from this podcast episode, I'd love it if you would write in the comments below and tell me, you know, which category you're in, 1, 2, or 3, and what your goal should be now, whether it's building fat, losing muscle, or doing both at the same time. If you have any questions, anything you don't understand still, please pop it in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer it either in the comments or make a separate podcast episode on it. If you found this episode helpful, please give me a like. Only a fraction of people who actually listen to the episode actually like it. Subscribe to my channel, whether you're listening on YouTube or Spotify. It really helps me reach more people and grow this show, program, podcast, whatever. And if you have a friend who doesn't know what to do and is confused by all the noise online, please send her this episode because again, it helps me reach more people. And if you are just starting your journey, whether you want to lose fat or build strength and muscle, please check out my resources. I've put them in the caption or the description box or whatever below. They're links to email courses, so you'll get emails from me teaching you the basics of either building muscle or losing body fat, or both if you want to sign up to both of the emails. And of course, if you need help doing this, if you don't want to do this on your own and figure it all out on your own, if you want one-on-one coaching, check out my online coaching program. I work closely with everyone on the program to write them an individualized meal plan, diet, training plan. I build it for you at your current level. There's no templates, no cookie cutter programs. I do everything from scratch for you as an individual. If that interests you, again, look in the description box. There'll be links to either an online form or booking a call with me, or you can just shoot me a message and let me know that you'd like to hear more. So thanks for listening.